deeply, deeply unhappy.
I don't know. It sounds perfectly fine. Literally, it sounds exactly right.
Hal can't hear it. And I'm not even sure if folks can hear us. Do me a favor, friends, if you can hear us, say I hear you. Yes, this is actually this is Hal's choice of music because this is Hal's show. And you know what? We're going to get to this real quick. So, hello, friends. I'm so glad that you're here. Look at this. We've got Duke's here. Faye is here. Nice. Thank you, Faye. I appreciate that. Ryan says, I can hear you belly aching. Wouldn't be a show without. Nice, Duke. Thank you. Yeah, we got to turn that music down. Hal's got good taste in music. Listen, we promised you a change in format, and this is kind of the very first introductory episode of that format where we're going to talk to someone whom we've never talked to ever before. He's never before been seen outside of his home.
I do leave the house occasionally.
Yeah, you can be found at a Gen Con or two. But of course, who I'm talking about, how about we look upon his visage and welcome Hal Mangold. Hal,
Hello.
You are, this is your first time on the ThursdAGE main stage.
It is, yes.
And your first time really hanging out and dealing with what we call the ThursdAgents. That I wanted to call them, we wanted to call them Thursdalians, but they prefer ThursdAgents over Thursdalien. Yeah, so it all works out in the end. Let's see. A wild Hal has been spotted. Faye says. Rain says hello and welcome. And David Bullock says, I think I owe Hal $20.
It's very possible you might, David. It's been a long time since I've seen you. It's possible.
Look at this. So, Hal, here's the deal. Let me tell you my vision for this, because you are up to your eyeballs in some of the most interesting aspects of developing TTRPGs. You've really got your fingers in all of the different pies, and you touch a little bit on design and development. You touch a little bit on a lot of it on the art and placement of that art, layout, and it's interesting to watch you at work because of the nature of the job. You really are embedded in all of those different spaces.
Well, first of all, I'm a little shocked that you can watch me work, Troy. That's a little disturbing.
Well, I do have a camera installed in your home, as evidenced by this.
Ironically, if you look right here, I do have a camera that I use right here.
Yeah, no, mine's behind it. Yeah, it's well hidden there behind the. Yeah, right. So and you've had quite a career. One of the things that I realize is that. Well, first of all, and I'm not sure if you're able to catch our shows, but we are often lauding you for the look and feel of the books are always. It's just incredible. They're like I think about the, Blue Rose is iconic. We've got Mutants and Masterminds, and that layout is just such a it's such a mood and it's such a vibe.
We'll get into the details on some of those later if you want. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and that's what I'm curious about. But first, I'm curious about talk us about how a young Hal decided to step into the TTRPG industry because kind of been doing a lot of different stuff for your career, right?
Yeah, I mean, so if you want to get technical, the first thing I ever did professionally in gaming was I did painting of new figures for the first Games Workshop store in the United States in Laurel, Maryland, back in the 80s. And
that's
paid stuff for the cabinet, and then I ended up working in the retail store and everything. And then I went to college and didn't do that. But the actual first time I got into the space was I've been gaming since I was 8, and I went to college. And of course, gamed all through college, and was president of my Role Players Guild at one point and stuff. And there was a game. So I went to school in Radford, Virginia, which was is near Blacksburg in Southern Virginia. And Blacksburg is where Virginia Tech is. And over at Virginia Tech, there was a store called Fun and Games, which was run by a guy named Shane Hensley, among other people. And if you know that name, he is the guy that runs Pinnacle Entertainment Group to
Ah,
this day. So I knew Shane. I'd known him as just going to the store. And eventually, while I was down there, he started a game company. And there was another company down there called, this one is a company that no longer exists, called Chameleon Eclectic Entertainment, which made a game called Millennium's End. And that was run by a guy named Charles Ryan, who currently now works, he's worked at WotC, he worked at a distributor called Deviant, but he works for Monty Cook Games now as one of Monty's people. And my first job ever in gaming fully as like a jobby job was I was pretty much Charles's dog's body for his for Chameleon Eclectic. And the first time I ever went to Gen Con, actually, it was with his company.
now say that again. Did you say you were his dog's body?
Yeah, pretty much working for Charles at that point, and was pretty much like Charles doesn't want to do this task, so you.
I get it.
So
I see.
It was not
His
the
body,
glamorous
yes.
part of the creative or anything.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so it was like although it did get me my first ever publishing credit, which was I did a proofing editing pass on a.
But at the time, you loved it, right? You were like, I could get it. I
Um,
could do this for
I
a living.
liked it. I liked it well enough. It was
Fair
it was
enough.
some extra cash, and I liked Charles and stuff, and and I was working in a records. I graduated from college, and I had a degree in journalism and in art. Although I did not train in graphic design, aside from a little bit of graphic design stuff that I had done because one of my professors. I went in that like exact window where like you didn't really learn that much computer design at all, even in journalism. I learned a lot just because I had a forward-looking professor.
Yeah.
But then
Oh, you're talking about the time that like technology plus the craft.
yeah, I mean, people were still,
yeah.
I mean, people like major. It was just like if you were a major paper, they were maybe using early electronic stuff. But a lot of papers, like the one near in the major city where I lived, Roanoke, they still use like wax paste up and stuff like that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I learned how to do concretely. I learned stuff like what was called counting a headline, which was you used like math to figure out the size of the headline you could fit on the page,
right.
which is like
yes.
I learned skill. And I took one graphic design course, and I learned a skill called cutting a mechanical, which was like how to cut out. There were different layers you had to do for the different separation. It was like a skill that like never will be useful again because either society will collapse completely, and nobody will be asking anybody to do any graphic design stuff like that, or just like computer desktop publishing. So
right. Hey, real quick. Let's see. Reading it says a veritable who's who of the TTRPG world. Wow. And then Commander Solo was like, a minion. So short.
yes.
Yeah,
I was definitely a minion, 100%.
Yeah.
So anyway,
real quick, Tempo asks a quick question I want to lose here. Did you draw the NPCs for Highfall Swale for the first edition of Fantasy Age?
Oh, I absolutely did not. No, that was all those were done by Britt Martin, who's a really, really good fantasy artist, who I haven't really gotten to work with for a while now, but I hope I can do so at some point.
One of the things I'm really stoked.
Years.
One of the things I'm really stoked about is that you really do have a Rolodex in your brain of some remarkable people across all disciplines.
I do. I know a lot of people. I've been doing this for a while, and I do know a lot of people. And in fact, the other major person that I know is that I just to finish up my early bits.
Of course.
I ended up at Pinnacle. So I knew Shane, and I worked for Charles part-time. And Shane, I was working at a record store, and Shane had started up Pinnacle while he was there, and I knew him while he was starting it. And they had published Deadlands. I think they had just published Deadlands. And I got hired on. I was like employee number 7 or something at Pinnacle. And I was just hired on kind of as like well, you know how to use computers and you can pack orders and stuff like that. And, and we like you, presumably. And my other boss was Matt Forbeck, who people probably know most recently as having designed the brand new Marvel Superheroes game. But Matt has done a ton of stuff and written a ton of novels, and he's worked for computer games and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just done all kinds of stuff. And those two, so Shane and Matt were sort of the two principals at there, along with Shane's wife was another one, Michelle Hensley, and who's fantastic. And it's really weird now because Shane's his oldest son is now, I don't even know how old he is, but I literally pushed that kid around in a stroller when he was like 1, which is really a bit
Right.
of a head twister. And yeah, and I knew Matt before he had any kids at all, and now he has 5. So there's that.
Right. Faces that presumably just added on at the end.
Yeah, although Matt did get 4 of those kids all at once, so that was kind of a thing.
Right. Well, so what are we looking at timeline wise? Are we looking at are we looking at 30 years in the TTRPG?
Well, first of all, shut your mouth. And second of all, it would be, let's see, it would be actually technically 26.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're rounding
I
up.
got hired in, and anyway, while I was there at
Yeah.
Pinnacle, I learned, I kind of got thrown off the deep end, and Matt knew a lot about graphic design, and because Matt can do all kinds of stuff, and he taught me, sort of, I had basics from college. And then he, sort of taught me more basics of how to use. Back then, it was PageMaker was the first software.
That's right. Oh gosh, I remember
Yeah,
PageMaker.
PageMaker 6.5. It was pretty good. Well, Adobe almost killed their own brand by switching to InDesign because everybody was, thought they'd gotten out of the desktop publishing stuff for a while there.
Right. Right.
So anyway, and I just gradually ended up becoming like the graphic designer guy there to a large extent, and then I ended up as the brand manager. I did writing as well at that point in development. So that was actually the place where I kind of wore the most hats at once because I actually I did art direction, I did layout, I did actual game development, and I did actual writing. I don't write much for games anymore, just because I discovered I was terrible on deadlines for writing. I hope to do it again once I've fixed that problem, which I've been working on for a long time. But I have written stuff for them, and I've done some freelance work, which we can talk about later if you want. But so anyway, I worked there for like 3 years, and the company changed, and we went through a whole bunch of stuff there, and I ended up finally cycling out of there in 2000, and then I moved back up here to Washington, D.C. from there, where I had been living, and I worked in tech for like 3 years, and that was weird. It was right during the tech boom of the early 2000s, and then I was on my second tech job, and I hated it with the passion of 1,000 burning suns, and I had been doing freelance work for Chris and Nicole. And I ended up sort of just buying into the company, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Since 2000.
All right, yeah, I was missing sort of that piece of how you stepped into the Green Ronin world, but
yeah, I'd gotten to know I'd known Nicole before I knew Chris. I met Nicole through Charles, who one of my early employees knew Nicole, and I knew Nicole way back when. I remember when Nicole was pregnant with her daughter, and that was a long time ago. And then I met Chris about this while I was working at Pinnacle as well, and we just started to hit it off and became really good friends.
Yeah.
And then 2003, I've been doing work since Chris started Green Ronin in 2000. I've been doing work for the company. I think I laid out, I've laid out of our output probably 95% of it. But yeah, so that was the first place when I, was when I've been doing freelance work for them since the beginning of Green Ronin, and then I finally became part of the company officially.
Nice. And so what's not on that list? What is it, 10% or 5% or something?
Oh goodness, all kinds of things. Well, for instance, the first edition of Mutants and Masterminds, I did not lay out. That was laid out by a collective called Super Unicorn, which consisted of primarily Eric Mona, who is one, a high muckety muck over at Paizo now, and is a great friend of ours. And let's see, it was Kyle, and whose name is escaping me. It's Kyle Baker. That's not Kyle Baker. I can't remember Kyle's last name. And then Sean Glenn, who was the primary graphic designer. And I should say that even today, the layout and design of Mutants and Masterminds, I owe a lot of that to Sean's original design, and I iterated on it.
So let's unpack that just a bit.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I want the idea. So it's just as important to have the skill to sustain a vibe over the course of 3 editions. I mean, that is to me very interesting when you think about what the first edition Mutants Masterminds looked like and the feel of it. And you said you kind of iterated on that a bit. What are the elements that you brought into the second and third editions?
I mean, that's a little bit of a weird one, because in a lot of cases in that thing, it was a change just for change. It was like there was absolutely nothing. Like Sean's original design is great. It's really, really good. I have some of it comes down to personal taste. Like it's like, what size do you like your text? What fonts do you like? How do you like it? How dense do you like stuff on a page? And I had some differences with that, and I applied them because I could. But like the layout was just, I mean, that first layout is really, really great. I mean, there's a reason why I didn't just like burn it to the ground and start from scratch.
Right, yeah, and
Because he
so
did a
it
really
must
good
also
job.
be uh, a little nerve wracking to mess with a thing that looks so good, but then I mean, clearly you've got that skill. Do you? What do
Uh,
you?
I don't know. I don't know that it's nerve wracking because if you once you know that you know what you're doing, you
Yeah,
and I'm not very like I'm not arrogant about my work and skills at all, but I've been doing it
yeah,
for a long time, and I know that I know what I know. I know that I know I have a basic competence in what I do. So I
yeah,
at least have
absolutely.
that level of confidence. So I don't have too much problem looking at somebody else's layout. And if it's like, I mean, it's easy if it's bad, because then you can just, this is bad, you fix it. But
Sure,
otherwise,
sure.
it's a matter of looking at it and going like, that's not the way I would have done it. And since I'm doing it, I can do it my way. And
That's right.
that's kind of
Yeah.
how you change
And
it.
then
Yeah.
how much of that way is about the things that the consumer sentiment side of things? Uh,
I yeah, so I feel pretty strongly that the game books are, I mean, they're information tools, and you need to be able to present the information in a way that people can get it out of it so they can play it.
yeah.
And there's always like a tension in graphic design overall of like of designeriness versus utility. And
Yes.
like the two polar opposites, that would be like utility would be like the early D&D modules that are all set in like 12-point Courier font, and everything is
Right.
just super utilitarian, and there's barely any art, and what art is there is not really that great. And then the other side is, I think, and I say this with respect because it is a magnificent artifact, but like Mork Borg is a fantastic product what they've created. People are familiar with that. It's a dark kind of fantasy role playing game, and the layout on it is phenomenal. But it's not something that I would do just because I think it steps way over the line of utility versus looking cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a Amongst graphic designers, there was a rock and roll magazine in the 1990s and 2000s called Raygun, and Raygun was known for its super edge pushing graphic design, and it's beautiful. And every graphic designer should look at it to get the idea of it. And I think that if you're designing a role playing game, you should look at Bork Bork, because what they've done is phenomenal. It's a great art piece. But sometimes you'd be trying to read a story in there about a band, and you literally like turning the magazine upside down because they decided to run the text in a
Right. So they're
spiral. I mean,
breaking
all
all the
kinds of stuff.
rules. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and breaking the rules is great, but there were a couple times where you're just like, I just want to read what's here, and it's really
Right.
difficult to do that. So that's a tension, and I probably need to push myself personally more into the artier side. I think if I have, because I've been doing graphic design long enough and layout long enough that I know I have my crutches, and I know there are books. There's a very distinctive, like if you just throw me a bunch of text and a bunch of art and you say make a book, and I want to do it in the easiest way possible for me, I have a I have a set of tropes that I use, and it kind of works for Age, because Age has, speaking of Age in particular, all the Age games have the similar presentation of the layout and of the
Yeah.
stat blocks and everything like that, and that's good, and that plays very much to my sort of crutches that I use. And like the Expanse is probably the one where I pushed myself out of my comfort zone the most, and I really like it. It's like
Yeah.
different column widths and different page designs and
You can
stuff like
see
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. But also, what it comes down to is also stuff like it's different when you're designing for a game line versus when you're designing a single game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like just this is so I've done a lot of freelance work as well, and here's an example of this is something that's not Green Ronin in particular, but I worked on the was I think it's the third edition Legend of the Five Rings game. And the original book for that was done by a company called Edge Entertainment out of France. They were phenomenal. It's an absolutely beautiful artifact of a book. And if you were trying to reproduce that, then do supplements to it, it was a freaking nightmare, because
Mm.
it was. So I had basically kind of went in there and took it apart and reconstructed it in a way that a future graphic designer, which turned out to be me for a little bit, but other people took it over eventually, could manipulate the pieces of it a lot more. So you still got the overall look, but it wasn't quite as much of an artifact. So Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit here, but
No, no,
for
no.
age,
How? No,
okay,
honestly, we're this is exactly what
okay,
we are meant to be doing. So do not worry about that. You know, I
yeah,
am curious about just the conversation of the difference between your babies. So you've got you know, the layout for Mutants and Masterminds and how that's evolved over time, and
mhm.
then the age development and across all of the different age titles. It how much thought do you put into sort of the notion that aspects of the adventure game engine can be sort of, you know, whether it's you know, modern age, fantasy age, Blue Rose, Cthulhu Awakens, they can kind of, there are pieces of that them can be modular and moved into and utilized in another way. Do you design a book to kind of be amenable to that, or does that just happen naturally?
I mean, do you mean like, could I pick a piece out of like Cthulhu Awakens and drop it into Blue Rose and it would work? I
Well,
mean,
well,
yeah, yeah,
people do that now, and my thought is
yeah,
how difficult it must be to lay out a toolbox.
yeah. I
That
mean,
it
that
must
kind of
be
comes
different.
when we've been doing so everybody knows we're working on the Creators Alliance stuff. Oh, did I
Oh,
just glitch there?
you're
All
back.
right, cool.
Yeah,
All right, good. Where we're trying to put together templates that people will be able to use and that are kind of modular like that. So I guess that's an exercise of it. But yeah, I mean, it's the age system is conducive to that, where you're kind of all I have to do for an new age game is kind of figure out how I'm gonna, I guess you can say, skid it, like, you know,
yeah,
like we do with this thing around me. There's a
yeah.
frame around me, you know, where you can just put anything on there and it works. So it's a matter of figuring that out. Now, obviously, there are obviously changes to how we present stats and there are tweaks and stuff to each system, but let's see here. I see a channel in there about the question in there about the colors. Yeah, I kind of just like, for instance, when I was laying out Cthulhu Awakens originally, I was convinced it was going to be purple, and it did not turn out to be purple. That just didn't
Yeah,
work.
what
So
I was going to bring that up, but let me just read the question real quick so that we've got
yeah,
Tempo who
sorry.
is who is dying for Swords of the Shadow Planet, like just
Uh,
absolutely yeah, very excited to hear what Malcolm has to say about that. But Dragon Age is red, Blue Rose is blue. I do wonder what other colors the Age games have.
yeah, the well, modern age is very much like solid primary colors. That one's
Yeah,
pretty easily for each book. The new fantasy age, I think tends toward like the bluish greenish stuff. I really haven't decided yet in terms of what we're doing with supplements. I may just keep it the same because, but I may change the top bars with that one because I actually did want a graphic bar on that one, so it's got kind of like a wood grain with like a map texture on it. I noticed also the temporary Zasta Bat Swords of the Shadow Planet in terms of the graphic design. I will say that is a place where we're gonna, you know, Malcolm and I are already talking about. You know, Malcolm has visions for it, and I don't know that his visions are completely implementable, but it's definitely going to be an off standard sort of
so you'll
book. It's
push the
not gonna.
boundaries a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and I like projects like. I mean, an age book. If I have the urge to push myself too far, I don't think I'm actually doing the game a service. I mean, because the whole point is you should be able to look at an age game and pretty quickly pick it up. So, you know,
yeah, yeah.
that's so the similarity between them is a feature. It's absolutely not a bug, and it's not something that bothers me. And I mean, like, pushing it the way I pushed it with Expanse is probably the right degree of which to, you know, to mess with it.
Well, and in
Um,
consumer sentiment, proving that out, people
yeah,
really do talk a lot about. They really enjoy the way that it's laid out, and they do talk about age games as toolboxes. Like there are interesting elements that are unique to the title,
yeah,
but also very portable.
yeah. No, I think that's true. And I have to say, working on the Expanse books, it's you know, the good thing about the way I set the pages up in there is at any point if I need to do a custom page layout, it doesn't look weird because it fits right in there. Where if I have a sudden, like, a modern age books are very much like two column, two column, two column. If I have a sudden do a spread page where it's all kinds of weird, you know, widths on the columns and stuff,
Yeah.
it looks a little off kilter. You know, but the like modern age and excuse me, Cthulhu Awakens and the new fantasy age are sort of like, you know, the age layout 2.0, where I sometimes do 3 column layouts because I have to and everything. And I have to, this is super technical, and I hope it's not
Hey,
boring.
we so
But
here's the deal. No, the new format for ThursdAGE is for us to get into the weeds and to
okay,
talk, and we're going to nerd out. This is our time to do this, and so and people will enjoy and follow along and learn some stuff, and that's really what it's all about. So do
Yeah, I
not
see
worry.
Jonesy in there saying that Cthulhu Awaken ended up dark green. Absolutely true. I was working on a Cthulhu game and I was like, this one's not going to be green. And I just got to the end and I was just like, green is the right color. It's the right.
Right.
I worked with a blue green. There's some blues in there as well, like the sidebars are like a deep blue and stuff.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
got
mean,
yeah, it's definitely aqua, kind of a water
yeah,
theme.
it's Lovecraftian and it's really hard to get away from. And
It
just
is. You kind of
sometimes
just drift there, huh?
sometimes you realize you're fighting a trope just to fight it, and you really don't need to fight it because it's something that works. I mean, it's a point of
Right.
recognition, right? It's something that will feel familiar
Absolutely.
to people when they come
Yeah, it's a
into
genre,
a
really. I mean, yeah, it's a
yeah,
genre, right?
exactly.
Jason, I just want to say,
Old paper, you know.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Jason, I want to acknowledge that you are now in the Tempo Club, which is the another person very, very excited about Swords of the Shadow Planet.
That's
So,
great. Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a really fun game. It's got a great cover. I don't know if we've ever done a cover. Have we done revealed the cover? I'm not even sure we ever have.
no,
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, we're not gonna yet.
we'll save that one for.
We do have with the cover for it's been done for quite a while, so that it's going to be cool. It's going to be a neat
Yeah,
game.
it's yeah, this is just the perfect amount of information that I like to share
Yeah,
with the world because it keeps them on the hook, and it's sort of a little bit of trolling. We like to do a little
yeah.
trolling and a little love, a little pain.
But
Yeah,
I was just saying, for right now, if you're a graphic designer in the game industry, it's I'm in my 50s and I've been doing this a while, and it's so cool to see so much cool design in so many different companies. There's so much stuff out there, and it's like it both is intimidating because you have literal like 24-year-olds fresh out of design school putting together their magnum opus, and it's just like, man, I've never done anything that good. But at the same time, it's inspirational too. There's so much great stuff to see,
yeah.
and all designers take inspiration from each other. I mean, you can call it stealing, whatever it is. We all look at each other's stuff and figure out, wow, how can I make that apply to what I'm doing?
In this
Um,
space, it
and
really is an homage. I mean, it really is
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Absolutely, and it's seen that way. I mean, of course, and you want to acknowledge that, and that's great.
yeah.
Tempos asks a question earlier. Uh, do you have a favorite tabletop role playing game in particular? Anything that's sort of
Okay.
like you just
I,
love it?
There are a couple. Let's see. I probably ought to go to. I'm going by what I still have as the. So I've actually gone through a period lately of getting rid of a lot of my older gaming stuff, just because I've been collecting gaming stuff for 35 freaking years,
Oh yeah, that's
and
a
I
lot.
need some space in the basement. So it's kind of a matter of like what has made the cut and is still down there, and it tends to be like either single copy arty games or like stuff like. But if I the my favorite thing that I probably am the most, and it's funny because I haven't played it as much as I do as would like, but RuneQuest. I've been a huge RuneQuest nerd since I was like 14 years old, and I own all kinds of stuff for it dating back into the first edition.
Sure.
And I bought all the new stuff. Speaking of new graphic design, I'm friends with Simeon, the graphic designer for Chaosium, who does a lot of their stuff. And the RuneQuest stuff and the art direction on that is just phenomenal. It looks so good, and it's so evocative of that. Yeah, and I see David Bollock talking about Jury. Yes, I'm friends with Adam Jury as well. He's really good.
Yeah.
But in terms of just like games that I love, it's that I was a massive Shadowrun fan, to the point where I was actually working at the Games Workshop store that I worked at when Shadowrun came out, and my manager got sent an ashcan copy, like a pre-production but full color copy of it. To the office, and I was so entranced by it that I took it home to read that night, and I got in trouble for that. Let me tell you. But
Oh right, because
yeah,
it probably
he
wasn't
was,
supposed to
yeah,
leave the.
no, it was not supposed to. It was okay. Like Tim and I are still friends, but it was the first time where I got like freaking dressed down at work because I took something I shouldn't have. So I was
Right.
a massive fan of that. I was a huge fan of Middle Earth role playing. In terms of games today, I obviously like Age a huge amount.
Yeah, of course.
See what else. I don't know. There's just so many really cool little games out there. In terms of like what I'm playing right now, I'm in a game of Broken Compass, which is I think what
Oh
Diffie has
yeah.
published it. It's like a pulp adventure game with a really cool mechanic with a real dice matching mechanic and things like that. And I really have a soft spot for Savage Worlds because obviously Savage Worlds is an iteration of the original Deadlands system that I was there for sort of the birth of. And I have always have great. It actually iterated out of the miniatures game as much as the role playing game, the Great Rail Wars, which I laid out. And not only did I lay it out, I actually helped. Like when we printed it, we set it up in the basement of the office at the time, and we hand assembled all the sets of it, which was crazy.
Hey,
Like
cool, very cool.
22 different components. Yeah, real cool. Let me tell you. God, it's so tedious. 22 different components going around a table, doing a box setup box and putting all the components in. Yeah. But so I have a big soft spot for that. But I mean, part of the problem is I just like so much. I like Harnmaster. I'm a big Harnmaster fan, and I love the World of Harn. System wise, the One Ring is really, really cool. Has one of the more innovative combat systems that uses theater of the mind, but still gives you tactical stuff. There's just so much stuff. I mean, I don't just love our games, and I love our games, but I love games, and I have.
You sure do.
I have
Yeah.
a basement full of them, and like this is just the stuff. Oops, excuse me, I got to get used to the camera. This way. This is just the stuff that we've made, here, all stacked up in this thing, and I've got shelves of stuff in my basement. So
I bet. And so it must be really difficult when you are looking at a career that spans the time frame that yours has, and you collect like relics, right? I mean, like these are pieces of stuff that you can't find anymore. It must be difficult to get rid of some of that.
It's funny though, because I have pack rat tendencies. So I came from a set of parents where my mom was a neat freak and my dad would have been like not a hoarder, but like massive pack rat if she hadn't been pushing about him. So I have this tension in me where I will collect a lot of stuff and then look at it and go, "Why is this here?" And I will get rid of it. So
right.
So basically, I just go look at something, and I like if I look at my game collection and I look at something and I'm just like, I don't need that anymore. I'll get it out of here. But I mean, like all my RuneQuest stuff, I've got a shelf of RuneQuest stuff this long, and they're going to bury me with that stuff.
So it's very much the Marie Kondo sort of
it really joy. It really does. It's like if I look at this and it sparks joy. I mean, I've just been going through a period right now where I'm also a big miniatures gamer. And I've been going through a period of looking at like old stuff that I have, and I've sold a whole bunch of old miniatures just because like I'm just never going to paint them, or like I just sold an original Mordheim box set that I had sitting around, and it's not that I didn't want to play Mordheim, it's that I didn't play Mordheim. So that ship has sailed, and there are other games to play now. So I just sold that on eBay, so it's not as hard as you would think to get rid of stuff. I mean, I just like. I can't. All I know is like when I look at stuff in my house, I know when it's time for it to go.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I still have a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
Fair enough.
But I mean, I've probably gotten rid of a good third of what I've collected over the years. There's also a tendency when you are actually working in the hobby game space and people, you just end up with stuff too. Somebody gives you their game.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah,
and it ends up peripherally.
In your basement. You come home with pockets full of dice and all that stuff.
And when I worked at Pinnacle first time, we were allowed to trade, and I had 1 year where I was the most maniacal trader you've ever seen in your life. And I came home with a stack of books, literally like this tall. It was crazy how many games I brought home.
I do love the end of show negotiations that go on as well. People are like, I don't want to take this home, but I don't want to give it away for free.
I would rather take somebody else's stuff home than my own, frankly.
That makes perfect sense.
We've got plenty of our stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay. So, so in looking at your career and sort of how you have developed into your chief creative officer for Green Ronin. Well, listen.
Here's the secret, kids. We get to make up our own titles.
That's right. And I'm the capybara.
Disembodied capybara.
That's right. You should see me. But you can't. What are you? As you're looking forward to what is coming, like, is there anything that you're like, I really want to get this on the docket? I want to implement this idea or this notion, like just something you've been hanging on to. I'm really curious about that.
I mean, I've got a bunch of. So I run a very small publishing company on the side as well, where I do like little stuff. And I like. I mean, let's see. What would I like to do? I'd still like to design a board game. That's one of the things I'd like to do. Personally, I would like to design a board Can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's me or if it's you, but
No, no,
we're
it's
good.
probably me. My Wi-Fi's been hinky occasionally.
Yeah.
I've done some board game design on a freelance basis, and they're really cool. They're really fun to do, and I love playing them as well. So I'd like to design one.
Yeah.
You know, I've designed. I still, so my primary job these days is mostly, you know, producing the game, which is, you know, take the text, everything, put everything together, package it up,
Yeah.
send it to press. But I still, I mean, I'm a game designer. I wrote for White Wolf. I wrote for Pinnacle stuff. I wrote I wrote for Atlas Games for the Feng Shui game. Oh, that's another game that I was a massive fan of, is Feng Shui, and that was kind of cool. Actually, I did the layout and design for Feng Shui 2 that Atlas Games produced, and that was actually kind of a cool dream job thing where I got to work on that game.
Nice.
But anyway, I've designed and I've tinkered for years, and I've got a couple card game designs lying around in the various states. I've got piles of notes for different stuff, but I would like to at some point do a board game. I think that's kind of a thing I would like to.
You know, one of the things that I was talking with Steve, you know, and Steve, his career, of course, spanning a bunch of different amazing things, and the
Mhm.
idea he's got a, you know, he's meticulous, of course. Is he pulled out his Mutants and Masterminds notes, and we
Yeah.
went through it, and it was just. Some of it was non sequitur. Some of it was like, what? And then other it was like, oh, that's the origin of this idea or this. Do you have
Yeah.
like scraps of that lying around in the home?
I am the opposite of meticulous, but I do have, like, for instance, let me see, where is it? Oh, here it is. Like, I have what I refer to as my paper brain, which is this
Sure,
notebook here,
sure.
which has lists of stuff. But the problem is that I don't just have one of these. I have several of them, and that there's stuff scattered all over the place. But yeah, I have pages
You and
of
I
notes
share
and
that
stuff
same
that's
affliction. Yeah, yeah.
scribbled. Yeah. Hey, there's nothing like a good notebook and a good pen.
Oh,
I
nothing
also have
better.
like I have a to nerd out for a second here. I have
Sure, let's.
a pen roll up that has all my cool pens in it.
Oh, look
And
at
I'm not a pen collector.
that.
I'm not collecting pens that are valuable or anything. I'm collecting pens that I like to write with.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that have like a smooth
yeah,
feel and
smooth
oh
feel, or
yes,
fountain pens, all that kind of stuff.
nice
So,
color. Sure, sure.
but I'm diagnosed, but I probably have ADHD, and because of that, writing stuff down is actually really good for me to actually focus on stuff. It's like it
Yeah.
helps me, you know, make concrete what can be ephemeral really easily.
That's right.
So
Yeah, yeah. It
so
also
so yeah,
makes room for the other ideas to pop
it
in when
does.
you
It does.
can.
Once I get it out of my head, I don't have to worry about forgetting
I'm
about
just
it.
saying,
So
as a person who is diagnosed with ADHD, you know,
yeah.
yeah, game recognized game for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So
uh,
yeah, I have ideas all over the place for stuff, and you know, maybe it'll be something we do with Green Ronin, or maybe it'll be something I do on my own. I don't know. You know.
yeah, nice. Okay, and so let me look in. We've got a couple, you know, folks just resonating, of course, with your list of games, and let's see. Oh,
The
their
pens are not
question.
necessarily ergonomic; they're just cool. This one's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. So Tempo asks, are the pens ergonomic? And
Definitely
um,
not.
yeah, yeah. And I've got literally I've got a bucket of pens that just don't quite make the grade, and then I have a nice pen. It's a steel pen holder that
Okay,
I put for. Yeah,
I'm
please
going to
do.
show you. Yeah, those are all the garbage pens.
We have the same,
Yeah,
but you can't quite.
those are the ones that don't
Yeah,
make the cut.
that's right. Yeah, that's
But I
right.
need them. Some of them are good. Some of them are highlighters. Some of them are, you know.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. David Bullock says, Prakash still needs to build a war game tag team.
Yeah. War game is tricky though. So I actually used to have this dream project that I wanted to do that I don't think I'll end up doing, which was there's a game called Lords of the Middle Sea, which was done by actually there are two. There are two games that I would love to get a chance to redo. And if you'll excuse me for a moment here, I'm trying to.
Where did those
There we
balloons
go.
come?
See if those help.
Did you see
I don't
those
know.
balloons?
I did see those balloons. I don't know what happened with those. Is that lighting a little bit better? I turned on the
Oh,
lights.
that's great. Yeah, no,
Cool. Yeah.
it's fine. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. There were two games that I would love to have done a redo one. One was Lords of the Middle Sea, which was a wargaming type war game from Chaosium back in the 80s, designed originally by Lynn Willis, I think. That just captured the illustration of it always captured my attention, and it was like because it's basically a game that they've actually got a role playing game set in the setting of it right now, where it's basically the polar ice caps have melted and the sea level's risen, and it's been 1,000 years, and
Sure,
And
sure.
basically, it was like a tall ship with like air-to-air missiles being launched off the side of it, and it was a war game where you were like fighting for like the Appalachians were like an island chain now, and they were a wardom, and there were yeah,
Kind
anyway,
of
it
a
was fun.
water world setup.
Yeah, it's kind of a water-worldy setup, but still there was land and everything, and you were and I've still got it. I've got a copy of it in my basement, and I've always wanted to redo that. And the other one is this game that might probably I don't know if anybody will recognize it. Probably the older folks will, called Revolt on Antares, which was a TSR did a series of 4 micro games. That was Saga, Vampire, Revolt on Antares, and I think it was Invasion of the Air Eaters. And but Revolt on Antares is this just like cool sci-fi game that had Errol Otis art, who was the guy who did the cover of an art for like Beyond the Barrier Peaks adventure way back when. And it's just a cool little war game of like you're a bunch of different factions on an alien planet. You can hire mercenaries and everything, and somebody has actually done. It's got some fandom out there because somebody actually did like a graphic design board that you can download there, and they redid counters with stock art and stuff, and it was really cool. But that kind of was like a dream project thing if I could pull it off.
Yeah. So talk to me about how, when you look at when you started and you look at where we're at now in
Mhm.
the industry at large, what are your thoughts on how things have changed?
Oh, I think like 100% for the better. I mean, in all
Yeah.
capacities, everything from the community of gaming as it happens to games itself. I mean, like just to start with the community of gaming, I think it's when you go to a show now, it's so much more diverse and so
Oh,
many
yes.
more different people there. And it was like it's I have no patience whatsoever for people who are trying to keep people out of the hobby, because the more people we have in, the better. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, and it was a kind of an isolated hobby. And I mean, gaming is often treated as a refuge for a lot of people, where it's a place they can go and they can feel safe. But unfortunately, sometimes tend to get to that safe place, and then they tend to think, "I've got to build a fortress here and defend it from other
That's
people,"
right.
instead of
Yeah. Yeah.
welcoming people into it. And I think that's a little sad. And I'm glad that it's not that way anymore. But when you go to shows, it's more diverse. There's more stuff, and but just in terms of also games, I mean, there's so many games, and that's a blessing and curse, I suppose. I certainly wouldn't want to be a game retailer right now, because it's got to be like drinking from a freaking fire hose. Um,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But that, certainly the barriers to people producing really cool little indie stuff are amazing. I mean, I love a lot of little indie games. I just last week I picked up a game that is essentially uh it's a little war game that somebody put together, and it's got really good art and really cool little rules, and it's basically kind of like a Shadowrunny type of war game. It's in a magical sci-fi future, and somebody just put that together and put it up on itch.io, and charged
I
$7
love it. I
for it.
mean, itch.io can
Yeah.
be bizarre as bizarre can be,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, but I love that. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, no, it's so cool. But also just the way gaming technology, has advanced is really, really cool. I mean, I even like some of the OSR stuff, which is the original studies rules, which goes back to basics. The only time I have a problem with that stuff is when they kind of try to pretend that we haven't made a lot of advances from then, because the games are so much more sophisticated, and there are rule sets to do whatever you want. And if you want to go back and play that way, like more power to you, enjoy it. But I don't like there tends to be sometimes you'll encounter an attitude of people of like gaming has become ruined by all these innovation, and I just can't
That's
find
right.
that.
Purists and back in my
Yeah,
day, kind of. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, a little bit of that, and I just can't find any purchase with that, because games are concretely, um, concretely better. I mean, D&D. Just to
Yes.
talk about the men in the room, D&D. I also played D&D. In fact, I just a couple back in May, I finished a close to 4-year 1 to 20 run with a group.
Oh,
We played
wow.
all the way through. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Um, I played a Goliath Ranger, and we had a good time. But I mean, D&D Fifth Edition, it's the best version of D&D there's been. Fourth, I'll say, is kind of a weird thing off to the side, because it was so different, and it's really cool, and I enjoyed the hell out of playing it. But of the D&Ds that clove to the main core D&D, I think it's really hard to argue that D&D Fifth isn't the best at what it's done, because it's been developed and refined and everything like that. You may not like D&D, and that's fine, but if you like D&D, I don't understand why you wouldn't like this one pretty much the best, unless you want to go back and play that older freestyle stuff. But for the
Right.
basics of it, and that's just because of the technology that's been instilled and the design refinements that have happened and everything like that, and all the people that work very hard at Wizards of the Coast to do that stuff.
Right.
to turn the game into something that is fun for a lot of people. And it's not a perfect
Yeah.
game, but like I said, that's an illustration of how like where we are now with Dungeons and Dragons is the best place D&D has ever been. And I don't think it's really arguable otherwise, unless you just are one of those people who can't stand, you know, innovation, I guess.
I agree. I think also, yeah, that factioning is really what turns that
Yeah,
whole, people start to, oh, no, it's this, that's the best. And
yeah, yeah.
the purists
I,
and the grognards and the, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I just love the fact that, but on the other hand, if you don't want to play D&D, you can go find a rule set that will give you whatever you want right now if you look around enough. I mean, the Powered by the
Yeah.
Apocalypse stuff is not really for me, but people love it, and if it's rewarding them gaming wise, then I think it's great. There's GURPS is still out there hanging around. People love, love GURPS.
Yeah.
And the people who love GURPS love GURPS.
They do indeed. They do indeed.
Yeah, there's the basic role playing system from Chaosium. There are all kinds of there's Pathfinder, of course. I can't leave out the other of the big fantasy things, which has gone through its own refinements and stuff. And then there are literally thousands of small games that will do. I have a term I like to refer to as a 3/8 inch socket wrench game, where it's like this game can't do everything, but if you need to take a 3/8 inch bolt off, by God, this is the game that'll do that. Which games that are focused to simulate one thing extremely closely. And I think it's really, really cool.
Me
because
too.
those things, not everything has to be a toolbox. Sometimes the thing can just do one thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. One thing really, really well. And that's, that's cool. So
I like
I just
that.
think yeah. And then, of course, that's just role-playing space. Also, if you get into board games, dear God, there's so many awesome board games, and there's so much great design, and there's so many resources. Like, oh my God, Board Game Geek is just such a gift in terms of being able to look up stuff.
All
And
day,
then,
all night. Yeah, great
yeah,
resource. Yeah.
and miniature stuff. And then, we haven't even talked about crowdfunding, how crowdfunding has let somebody with a really
I
cool
was
idea.
just going to talk. I was going to say maybe we can, kind of put a bookmark in that primarily because we're getting into the final stretch of the show.
Oh, cool.
And,
we can save that for next time. I've talked about more crowdfunding.
Well, so here's some thoughts. I really want to. One of the things that I love about our Mutants and Masterminds Monday is that we sit and we do a planning episode, and folks come with their ideas. And I was going to say one of the things that I've noticed, coming from the video game side of things, 20 years on that side of the world, the consumer has become so much smarter and so much more. They understand the process, and with TTRPGs, the same applies. That there is such a blurry line between people who create and people who play. Often they're both. And I think that that's one of the things that I love the most about the TTRPG space is that it really depends on people to do some work, some creative work, and so part of what I'm hoping that we can do is maybe our next, and talking about the future, maybe what we can do for the next episode is a planning episode, just to kind of invite people to come and say, I want Hal to tell me about this.
Sure.
Yeah,
that'd be
and
great. I've kind of blathered on about a bunch of different stuff today, so.
Well, but I also want to make sure that there's room for that, because I think one of the interesting opportunities that this live stream will give us is historical reference points. I mean, we just don't spend enough time sort of following, sort of the historical data, and it is fascinating to me. And I can tell by the folks in chat that it's fascinating to them as well. Now, thinking about from your perspective, I don't want this all to be just like Troy telling Hal what kind of things we should talk about. What have you got on your, because we've talked about this for a bit, and I was so excited that you were amenable to the idea. What are some things that you'd like to bring to this space?
I don't know. I kind of just bring a big head full of ideas and thoughts.
Which is brilliant.
I'm pretty much open to anything. Talking about developments in gaming, like the actual play movement and Kickstarter and crowdfunders in general and stuff like that is certainly something we could do. We could talk about if people wanted to know more technical aspects of like how a book is made and what we do. I'd certainly be able to talk about that. Yeah, because if you want to learn how we make the sausage, that would be fine.
I can see in chat we've got some folks. Maybe there's even opportunity for us to engage with our Age Creators Alliance folks who might need some help on thoughts on how to lay a thing out. And absolutely.
Just
Go
answer
for it.
Dave Bollock right there. I did not work on Brave New World. I was in the office when it was being done, but I was not the actual graphic designer on that. I'm trying to think if Zeke did that. There's a guy named Zeke Sparks who works for ended up working on. He worked for Shane for many years. Then he went on and worked for City of Heroes video game. Actually,
Oh
I don't know
yeah.
what he is now.
What's his
Yeah,
name? Hal? Oh,
Zeke
Zeke's.
Sparks. Yeah,
Um,
he was at Jack Emert's company who
that's
just
right.
renamed themselves.
Well,
Um,
yeah. So he was a part of Jack's
Yeah, yeah.
org.
Well,
Yeah,
hilariously, so Jack Emert is the guy that did City of Heroes. He was one of the
I
studio
worked on
heads for
City
it.
of Heroes. Yeah,
Did you work on City of Heroes? So you know
yeah,
Jack? Yeah.
yeah.
So I met Jack when he did freelance work for me at Pinnacle Entertainment Group.
Wow. Did he have that
Yeah,
luxurious hair at the time, or was
he did not. It was much shorter. He worked with a guy named Rick Dakin, who now teaches at Ringling College of Design down in Florida. And they wrote back east, the north, I think, for us, if I remember correctly. And one funny thing about Jack Emert that I tell everybody all the time is if you're familiar with he's a huge kaiju movie fan,
yeah.
and he can if you've ever seen the Mothra movie, you know they're the two little women from the island who sing a song to summon Mothra, and
That's right.
Jack can sing that song in falsetto voice, and it's hilarious.
If only I would have known this. Jack and I have crossed paths many different ways, like through different
Yeah,
studios, and he's, like what are they now? They
they
recently.
literally just renamed it. It's like J something or other. It's a fairly egocentric name, I believe, but it makes it very clear that it's Jack's studio.
Who, Jack?
Yeah, really.
Jack?
No,
That's
Jack is a
wild.
wonderful guy. I love him to death. He's fantastic. But
Yes, he is
But
quite
he
a
is also
fan.
a person. He's a personality.
Yes, he's a fan of him, of
Yes,
his
he
work.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
But so there are people who are talking about wanting to, get some advice on layout, but I'm also thinking
Sure.
too, like portfolio reviews, or just the other thing too is, I mean, you have a veritable who's who of the TTRPG space living in your head. We should invite a couple of them to come on and talk about stuff.
Yeah, I can see what might be able to happen with that. We could have
Yeah.
sort of a more roundtable thing. I have
Yeah,
some designer
that's
people.
right. Could do a panel, could do, I think there's a
Sure.
lot of, or just, having a dialogue with somebody who you've, been in the trenches with, and, can kind of
Yeah.
talk about sort of the evolution of things. But
Mhm.
Hal, so we'll endeavor to kind of keep this to about an hour, and that's just generally how it works. But as we're thinking about future shows and those sorts of things, I think also one of the things that I like about you, Hal, is you are most certainly a guy that just wants to have fun playing games with people. Like
I do.
you love it.
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
you can
do.
yeah. And so maybe we look into the future, and oh
Hey,
good,
Stan.
hey Stan. Maybe we'll look at ways that we could engage with chat and play a game or two or something,
Sure.
but yeah. So, well, listen, my friend, and for folks who are listening in chat, do me a favor real quick. Make sure that you are uh, your platform of choice, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, maybe you're watching over on LinkedIn. We'll have to see how that goes. Um,
If you're
do
work if you're watching over on LinkedIn, I don't understand you, but God bless you.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully we are a
God's bless
glass
you.
of water in that parched
Exactly.
the world's worst social network. But
I just
yeah,
people seem to like it. Some people like it.
hey, they love it. They got
I
the
don't want
fire
to
in the
yuck. I don't
belly
want to
for
yuck.
it.
You don't want to yuck a social media yum for somebody. It's just
Sure,
not
sure,
mine.
sure, sure. I tend to think that we're yumming up their yuck, but
Yeah, yeah.
how about this? If you would do me a favor, friends, wherever you're at, I don't know what LinkedIn does. I think it may be a thumbs up or a heart or whatever. Give it to us. If you're over on Facebook, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you are giving us the thumbs up. Leave a comment. Share it with a friend over on YouTube. Do the same. Go to every social media platform and say something nice. I'm joking. Your social media platform of choice. Leave a kind word, and then also share it. What that does is it gets the algorithm thinking, there's doing something that people are very interested in, and yeah, whatever it is, give it to us. And that would be very, very much appreciated. Now, do me a favor as well, friends. If you've got a question, one of the things that Hal is really great at is giving advice. So let's say you need some
I'm, I'm
coaching
good
and
at I'm good at
love.
I'm good at giving it. I'm not sure it's good advice. I can't
Right.
promise on that.
The quality of the advice may vary, but the giving is quite high quality,
Yeah,
top shelf stuff. Send a note to let's play at greenronin.com, and we will endeavor to ignore it until such a time that we go, oh, hey, I better check to see if anyone's written. So
yeah,
please do that. And yeah, so here's the goal. You're going to see friends over the course of this month. We're a little out of order on the ThursdAGEs. Hal, I think we've got you signed up for the end of the month, but we'll settle into the cadence that works. But at least once a month, we'll have you on the
sure.
program, and we'll be able to hang out and have some fun, and just play some games.
Yeah, we'll work it out. Sounds
I
good.
appreciate you a great deal. Anything that folks should know about? Where can they find you? What are you working on? Something special they might want to keep their
Uh,
eyes open for?
let's see here. All right. Well, for my side company, actually, I do have this at print right now. It's Greg
Ooh,
Stolze's new game, Rain Rules. That's kind of a cool. Uses the one rule system, so that's like a side deal. That's
nice. Yes,
currently.
perfect. That's exactly
Yeah.
awesome. People like to hear that.
Let's see here. I'm going to be, if you happen to be in the DC area and you're going to be at Doxicon this weekend, which is a weird little sort of, it's a convention which is about fandom and faith, which I would not usually go to personally, but I do stuff with Ken Hite and he's there as a guest, so I'm going to vent there.
Doxicon?
Doxicon.
Doxicon, so not about dogs.
Doxicon. Yeah. Normally, I'll just put in a pitch for this. I would be at Metatopia this weekend, which is a fantastic playtest convention up in New Jersey, run by the people that run ShoreCon and stuff. And it's if you like playtesting games and want to get deep into it, that's a good show. Social media, you can find me at Atomic Overmind on both Twitter, because it's still freaking Twitter, and
Right.
over on Blue Sky as well. I am
Okay,
also that.
great.
And I'm trying to think. There's a Tumblr, but I never pay attention to that.
Yeah, I'm not
And then
sure a lot
also,
of people are.
yeah, and then also there's AO Press, which is my side company, which is Atomic Overmind Press. On the tweets, I haven't gotten that over on Blue Sky yet. So
Nice. All right. Well, so yeah, so folks, go hang out and find Hal on those social media platforms. And so you listen. We filled up an hour effortlessly.
mhm. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Troy, have you ever known me to have a problem filling time with talking? I don't think
Not
so.
at all. Not at all. Yeah, you and I have that same skill in common. We can waste an
Yeah,
hour like nobody's business.
indeed.
Ultimate Gabe, you know what? You might have come a little late, but you came right on time. So good to see you. And my
Yeah,
thanks to everybody in chat for hanging out and asking great questions and getting engaged in the subject matter. Don't forget to send in a note if you've got a question, you need some advice. Maybe you've got a rash and you want to send Hal a picture of it. We
don't do
can make
that.
we can make that happen.
Yeah. And maybe next time we do this, my office will not look like something exploded in it back here.
Hey,
So
you know what?
we'll
We
see.
are we are in the trenches with you.
Yeah,
We're
we'll see.
living the life, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and there's still
Good to see you,
the
Stan.
video on demand. But
Yep,
chat, thanks again, Hal. I appreciate you, sir. Really, this has been a blast, and I look forward
absolutely.
to
Been
what
fun.
we've got cooking in the future.
All right, man.
Alrighty,
We'll
that's
definitely do it again.
it. Goodbye, y'all. Have a great week.
Bye bye.